Okay. Good morning, everybody. All right. So this is actually going to be class number one. So welcome. Um, this is going to be the short set martial focused standing class. This is just instruction. I'm not going to be standing long. I just did an hour or 45 minutes in the previous class, which I'm going to upload next. But I wanted you to at least take this one so you understand what we're doing. There are going to be basically three stances that are going to be done in the short set class. San Ti, or as in my system you call it Sum Choi, which I think is a Cantonese version of San Ti. But I like to use the word Sum Choi because our San Ti looks different than other people's San Ti. So it just avoids confusion. If you say, I'm standing in San Ti, no, San Ti doesn't look like that, it looks like this. Well, I'm standing in Sum Choi. Oh, okay, what is that? Right? So it kind of eliminates arguments. You know how the martial art community is. Anyway, let's get to it. A little bit about how this short set class will be. There'll be a very brief warm up, the stances, and then the warm down. And the warm down will generally be some type of martial movement done in a way relaxing to warm the body down and at the same time develop a skill and to train and give a pathway to the energy that was developed in the standing. Those things will come from Tai Chi, Shirin Bagua, and Wing Chun. Maybe even Bak Mei a little bit. And okay, so let's kind of get to it. The first thing you want to try to do is have a line in the floor. If you have a hardwood floor or tiles, that's perfect. If you have a carpet that has some kind of a pattern in it that you can see a line in it, that's fine. If you have a yardstick, you can lay the yardstick down just for reference for now. You find your line. You put your heels on either side of the line. I'm trying to see if you can see me. Let me stand over there. So I'm putting my heels on either side of a line. And now I'm going to take whichever foot is going to go forward, that's going to face forward. So I'm going to lay the big toe alongside that line. This foot should be 45 degrees that way. And then I'm going to sink my body and extend the foot. So it's almost like I'm on a tightrope, but not quite. On a tightrope would be both heels directly on to the line. I don't stand like that. I stand on either side of a line. Doesn't matter how thin the line is or thick it is, but you don't want to be more than here. This is for internal. There are arguments to say that the feet should be this far apart. That's what you want to do, you can do it. The way we were trained is to stay on the line and open up in the perineum. Okay. I'm going to now take my index finger. I'm going to place it on that line. And I'm going to go up and here. And the index finger should be just on the outside of the nose and here. So now it's directly lined up with that toe. This hand is going to ball into a fist, and we're going to put the thumb inside the fist, and we're going to place it on the rib cage. Now, where on the rib cage, it does matter, but for now, it doesn't matter. So if the rib cage is too difficult, you can put it on your hip. That's acceptable. You can place it between the rib cage and the hip. That's acceptable. You can place it at the beginning of the floating rib. That's acceptable. You can put it in the middle on that floating rib. That's acceptable. You can put it very high up on under the armpit. That's acceptable. And if you can get that far back, you can put it kind of on the back part of the rib as it starts to round. All of those are appropriate, and we'll talk about why in a minute. Now, what are other requirements? The first requirement is all standing. Head erect, tongue through your mouth, chin slightly back, chest hollow, back rounded, and also rounded this way like a turtle. So it's rounded vertically and horizontally. and then sit like a tiger. So if you ever seen a tiger sit, there's usually like this, and they're all like that. That's sitting like a tiger. You've got this slightly forward motion, and this is actually going to give you quite a bit of stability. But of course, you don't want to hunch that much. So it's head up, sink the chest, round the back, hollow, right? And then sit like a tiger. And then I lift the perineum. So to the side, how much? So this is 100% straight. That's 50% bent. Well, that's all the way bent. That's 50% bent. That's 100 straight. That's 10. That's where we want. Straight but not straight. It looks straight, but it's not straight. My elbow should be facing down. There's a little crease in your arm, and you want to kind of have that crease so it's completely vertical. Horizontal. My finger's pointing up. The first instruction for Santee is eye on finger, mind in dantian. So that means your eye is focused on the finger. Don't let it waver, but your mind is on your dantian. See how my arm bent? So you have to constantly remind yourself to keep that arm straight, or 90% straight. So the other thing is that this knee, if you were to bend it, should line up with the ankle bone of the front foot. That's the distance. So before I stand, I usually kind of do a visual check. I do a bend. I see if my knee is lined up with the ankle bone. If it is, I then take my hip, I turn it this way, and I open this knee out so it's over the toe. And I want to get this hip turned as much as possible. And then I turn the waist a little bit more. So this sternum is now in the center. And face you. So I do a double check. It's lined up. Okay, I turn my hip. I keep this out, so it's over here. Keeping that alignment, I turn my hip as much as I can, and then I turn my belly button a little bit more. And so now I am facing into the center, and boom. And that's our Santee. Here, 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 or here. All acceptable. Okay? The second stance, sorry that you can't see my face. The second stance is what in my system we call bear. Now I've had 3 teachers from the same system. I never knew that it was called bear until I got into the other teachers of the system after the Grandmaster passed away. And bear was shown to me 3 different ways. It was shown to me here, 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 and here. And they all called it bear. However, one teacher made some distinctions that I think are worth noting. For our purposes in the short set class, we're going to do this one. And the reason is because the focus of the short set class is martial. And I'm looking at it from a standpoint that if you're standing for martial purposes, you've never really stood before. And that it could be an incorrect assumption. Both positions are going to do something for you. They both are. This one, though, is going to give you more muscular attachment, if that makes sense. So immediately into your session, 2-3 minutes in, you're going to feel it in your arms. And you're going to be struggling. And I think it's this struggle that is going to produce the muscular elements that we can use in martial purposes. It's still low level. It's still what we're going to call first level. The attainment that comes from here is second level, or even third level. However, there's a lot of benefit to doing this one. You see this in Tai Chi, you see it in Yi Chuan, and you see Xingyi people do this all the time. So there's nothing wrong with this one. Holding the barrel, so head erect, tongue to the roof of your mouth, lift the neck, this here, like kind of lift this bone a little bit, but at the same time you're going to sink under the bone. So you're going to kind of lift here, and then sink there. And then you're going to lift here, and then you're going to sink in the corresponding Ming Men. And then you're going to lift here. It's really expanding in two directions. Then you're going to sink the pelvis and lift the perineum. And then you're going to open the back of the knees, sink the front, open the back of the ankle or the Achilles heel, like lift it, and then sink the front of the foot. How's the hand position? One of my teachers taught me to hold like you're holding a cup. And this actually does some things internally, which is pretty cool. We'll talk about that another time. But I heard a Yi Chuan teacher talk about the thumb extending up and the pinky extending down. This also does something pretty interesting. So I will leave that up to you. I think depending on what you're feeling or going after, whichever one I think, well, I'm not even going to say that. My recommendation is to do this one, like you're holding a cup. Later on, explore this one. That's my recommendation, but I think they're both equal. Like there's so many of these internal things. It's like with each path you take, it takes you down a different kind of journey, and your route is different. But I think ultimately most of them end up in the same place. Drop the shoulders. The thing I like most about this one is if you really get into the shoulder dropping and the head lifting, eventually your pelvis will drop and open your spine, and then you'll have root. For me, it took about maybe 4 good months before my pelvis dropped. One day it just went doop, and it literally just dropped. Like I felt like my spine expanded an inch. It probably didn't. It was probably just a couple of millimeters, but it felt like my spine just relaxed and opened up. And when I do that, I've got all this root. So if a person were to push my hands here, I've got root. And there are other things you can do connecting this to your middle dantian, so you have even more ability. You can do circles inside, small circles. We'll talk about the circles another time. I don't want to get too crazy on these first sessions. This is just really a physical component section. So those are the 2 stances we're going to get into. There's a third stance we're going to do. There's a third stance we're going to do called Hawk. But we're not going to do that today. We're going to save that for another time. So at the beginning, we're really only going to go over 2 stances. And if you notice, or if you think about it, one stance is a vertical circle. The second stance is a horizontal circle. So you have horizontal and vertical. Horizontal, vertical. And this is basically, not going to say basically, but a lot of your systems, if you can boil them down to vertical and horizontal movement. Okay, that's it for these first classes. I hope you get a lot out of these. Just one final note. It's not all going to be internal standing. There are going to be yin yoga components, stretching components, kicking components, explorations of external systems like Baji Quan, Shaolin, Xingyi, Bagua, Wing Chun, internal Wing Chun, and even boxing. So I'm really going to be kind of like presenting my whole approach to martial arts for the last 37 years or so. What has worked, what hasn't worked. I'm not presenting this as a teacher. I'm presenting this as just a person who's been walking a path and just sharing with you my experiences. I have no final word on anything, but everything I talk about I can do, I can demonstrate, I've experienced. So that being said, welcome. There's going to be a lot to talk about: breathing patterns, mental visualizations, imagery into reality, things you can do inside your body to create external manifestations, the use of circles in combat, the use of directions in combat. When I say directions, I'm talking about north, south, east, and west. Things like that. Heaven and earth energy, the middle, upper, and lower Dantian, and how they manifest in the body for healing or energy, as well as for combat, and how to get speed and how to get structural alignment for combat purposes, interrelationships between all these combat arts such as boxing and even wrestling and Tai Chi, things we can do to sync our body to prevent ourselves being lifted up. I mean, all these things. We're going to explore a lot of stuff. I might even do some reaction in the future. But anyway, that's it for today. Thank you for coming. I'm sorry about the position of you not being able to see my head. All right.